Our next session is going to be taken by Hrishi Oberoi, founder and CEO of Photon Tadpole. Rishi's been in the games industry since 2002 and is currently the founder and CEO of Photon Tadpole, a game development and consulting company. Prior to this, he's been the director of games at Disney India, the interactive division, and previously held various roles, including studio head, business head, international publishing, director, games and studios, at one of India's pioneering gaming companies, India Games. Rishi helped build India Games from a 30-man company to over a 250 people strong studio working on iconic brands such as Spider-Man, Jurassic Park, Bruce Lee, Godzilla, and Bioshock. Ladies and gentlemen, Hrishi Oberoi.
Hello. Yeah, I think what Pratik failed to mention was that he was also part of that 250 member team and part of building that. Okay, so what I'm going to be talking about today is, can mobile games really make money in India? We've heard a lot about this stuff, right? India is the next big gaming market. There are a lot of VCs coming in. A lot of people are investing money in India and saying that, okay, fine, India is going to be the next big market. Google is going out and out and trying to help developers in India and saying that, oh yeah, there's like India is the third largest country as far as app consumption is concerned. But do people actually make money? Are people in India actually paying? Well, those are some of the questions that I'm going to try to answer. And if the Indian publishers are actually making money, I'm going to try to ask the questions and try to give you guys an answer of where they make money, how are they making money, and how much are they actually making. So a little intro of myself, which Pratik's already given, but let me just reintroduce myself. I've been in the game development industry since 2002. I've been building and developing and publishing games since 2002. I've actually been more on the production side rather than the publishing side. But over that period of the last 12, 13 years, my integration with the company, I've seen how the publishing has happened in India. And over the last 13 years, let me just tell you how this industry has grown, right? This is some of the history of what has happened in India over the last 13 years. So very early on, right, when I joined India Games, we were essentially making mobile games and we were publishing through the mobile operators. And the mobile operators in India started selling these games in 2000 to 2003 through the mobile operator, what at that time they called the MVAS ecosystem, which is the mobile value added system. Now, this is a history lesson for you guys, and just remember this, as with all things in history, keep this in mind because it'll come back later on to haunt you guys. So just remember that MVAS term that I'm going to be using. And what happened is, over the years, it slowly started to grow. I mean, at that time, the operators didn't even have, systems to sell the games. When we started saying that, okay, fine, we are making these mobile games, we're making them in Java and Brew, we want to sell them. They said, the operators came back and said, how? We don't know how to sell these games. So we was like, okay, we'll help you build those platforms. And that's what we did. India Games helped the operators build those platforms, those CDNs, all the back-end billing services to actually help operators sell these games. And the operators were like, great, this is awesome. How are you going to bill? So in other countries, we said that we bill through your billing networks. So, okay, fine, we'll give you billing network, we'll give you distribution. And for that, we'll keep 70% of the revenue. Thank you very much. And we as content companies, this is a really new business, has never happened anywhere before. We're like, okay, fine, we'll keep 30%, let's see how it goes. Over the years, of course, that revenue share has slowly become more towards the publishers, the content owners, and the operators have taken less and less according to the standards of international revenue shares. But that took a really long time in coming, and that's why this is what you call history. So let me just quickly go through what we're going to cover in this talk. Okay, I'm just going to quickly, talk a little bit about what the developers' needs are. What do developers need to do to make money? What is the current size of the mobile industry in India? That's a really important one, because what we do is we'll work backward. We'll say, okay, if this is how big the industry is, we'll say, okay, fine, this is how much money each player in this industry makes. And within each player, this is what the split of the revenues are. And within that, if one specific publisher who has this many number of games, this is how much money they make. And therefore, this is how much a single game can make. So when we go backward that way, we'll be able to come down to how can you make that much money from a single particular game. We'll do the market breakup by source. And then based on that backward calculation, we'll try to do a revenue speculation. How much money could you then therefore end up making if you use one source, a second source, a third source, a fourth source of distribution. Okay, and then if you're going to use all these different sources of distribution and monetization, each of these sources are not exactly the same as each other, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the challenges, and based on those challenges, what those solutions are going to be. Okay? So, let's start. Let's Jackie Chan this shit. Okay, so what I mean by that is, like, Jackie Chan is the ultimate martial arts hero, right? We're going to find out, we're going to do a breakdown based on speculation, based on industry data, how much money can you actually make from a game in India? Okay? So let's start with the developers' needs, right? So what do the developers really need, right? What developers first need is to have a lot of people play their games. Distribution is their key, right? Today, what has happened is that there's a lot of developers out there who they see this easy ecosystem of developing games and publishing it on the mobile ecosystem, on Google Play, on iOS Store. So anyone who can make a game saying that, awesome, let's do this. Let's just make this game, put it up on the App Store, we'll make a lot of money. We'll get a lot of people to download it and make money, right? So they need that distribution, right? Whether it's actually going to work like that, that we don't know yet. And we'll figure that out over time, whether if you just put it up on the Google Play Store or on the App Store, will you get the distribution, or if there are other ways to also distribute your game where a lot of people can play your game, right? What else do they need? They need to have a lot of people pay for their games, right? Now, this can happen in multiple ways, right? First of all, if people have to pay for their games, what the people need is a method to pay for their games, right? Which means either through cash, or through credit card, or through operators, or through Paytm, or through any other method in which you can get a person to, give a game to the developers, right? And especially if you're making a free-to-play game, right? If you're making a free-to-play game, the developers need to get the users to play the game a lot and then come to an area when they can start paying, right? So, or if it's not a free-to-play game, then you just need the guy to pay. That's it, right? So this is what the developers need. Now we have to figure out how do we solve these problems? How do we get a lot of people to play the games and a lot of people to pay for the games? So let's start with the mobile games industry size. So I'm going to be referencing the KPMG report. There have been a multiple number of reports over the year. This is the KPMG report which was published, the FICCI KPMG report on the media and entertainment sector, which was published in 2009, right? And what it says is that, it's a little bit of an eye chart, but let me just tell you. It says, the breakdown here is, this blue thing here is the mobile industry, which is so small you can't even see it. 0.5, like 500 million rupees, which is basically 50 crores. 50 crores, 500 crores? I don't know, whatever, right? The point is that here, a lot of this information, the way KPMG did this report in coming to these numbers was go out and speak to the industry leaders and ask them, how much do you think the industry is worth? The way the industry gave that information back to these report makers was saying that, okay, listen, we know that we are making this much money, so therefore we think everyone else is making this much money, therefore this is how big the games industry is, right? And up to here, it kind of made sense, which is where onwards, this is 2009 and the year that they published it, and as you can see, the year that you publish is the year that is going to be the inflection point. And suddenly it's going to grow only after the year that is published, which means in 2009, the experts, the report, the guys who made the report, the KPMG guys thought that in 2013, the whole games industry was going to be worth 2,740 crores. In 2015, they published another report. In 2015, they said, no, in 2015, it's going to be 2,750 crores, right? Yeah, it's really, I mean, I don't know. Is it true? Is it not true? This is where people start now wondering, what are these reports really about? Are they actually making sense? Where are these numbers coming from? Is it true? $2,350 crores in 2014 is total industry of the total the total gaming industry, out of which mobile breakdown is 1,070 crores. This is KPMG report of 2015, right? Projection in 2015, this year, this is this year's report, by the way, is by the end of the year, 2,750 is a total gaming report, gaming revenues, right? Out of which the mobile gaming revenues is going to be 1,340 crores. Now just take a look at this, right? Okay. I'm not going to talk about the console revenues. I'm not going to talk about the PC and digital revenues. Here they're saying 970 crores is console and 440 crores is PC and digital TV. I have no idea. Where did they get those those numbers from? How much of this is true? From what I know is a lot of these console numbers they get from Sony themselves. So it is possible that some of this is true. But what I do know is about that 1,340 crores. 2015 mobile game revenues is expected to be 1,340 crores, right? Even in the report that Rajesh shared in yesterday morning, the Nasscom report, he said that the total revenue, mobile revenue is $150 million, right? It's about 1,000 odd crores, right? So, okay, maybe not exactly the same, but KPMG had one number, Nasscom has another number, Newzoo has another third number, someone else is doing another report. Everything comes down to about that 1,000, 1,200, 1,300 crores. That's how much money is being spent in India for mobile games. Really? Jackie Chan is saying, really? Where is all this money and why haven't us developers seen it? I'm assuming this is the question that you guys are asking yourself. Where is this money and why haven't we seen it? Okay? Okay, let's break this down. Let's see if that works. Big disclaimer, I am an independent entity, so none of this information is mine. I'm going to be doing a lot of extrapolation, a lot of speculation from a lot of experience that I have, a lot of observations that I've made, and a lot of other data that I've read, and a lot of data that journalists have also reported. So just keep that in mind, and let's move on from here. Okay? Now, let's go back to the history a little bit. Right? What has happened over the last 10 odd years, there's what I like to call the great transition, right? It's that transition in the phones where we went from feature phones to smartphones, right? It's that transition in the business models where everyone went from that MVAS to the organized app stores, the MVAS distribution the operator sites and the off-deck sites into the organized app stores. It's that transition of where everyone went from carrier billing to credit cards. In the last 10 years, that's what the transition has happened. That's the great transition. Everyone who has come up in the mobile games industry making games, they're like, okay, now there are better ways to distribute the games, there are more organized ways to distribute, the easier ways for us to make games. The games that we can make are so much better, easier, nicer. We don't have to worry about that Java stuff and the brew stuff and wondering about how are we going to optimize and stuff like that. It's, the golden age. Except it's not really, because what's happening is that there's, in this transition, any period of transition, especially when one strata of people can easily transition because they have access to the new technology, and the other strata of society still wants to or doesn't have the means to be able to transition, what happens is that that transition actually blurs with each other. And what is happening is that's exactly what's happened, right? We are saying that in the new age, it should be smartphones, making games on smartphones, distributing it through operators, through the organized app stores, Google Play, iOS and all, and making money through credit card. But that's not what's happening. People are actually playing on smartphones, but still doing distribution through MVAS. They're actually playing on smartphones and actually doing revenues through carrier billing. So there is actually a sort of a gray area. Everything has actually become merged. It's not smoothly transitioned. And in most developing markets, you'll actually end up seeing that. So let's talk a little bit about the market breakup, right? What are the sources of distribution and revenue for these games, right? And now is that history lesson that's going to come back to haunt you. MVAS. Right? The mobile VAS ecosystem. What does this mean? There's a whole bunch of different methods of distribution in the mobile VAS ecosystem. In where you're distributing through other methods instead of the operator, the organized app stores. And this includes pre-embedding it on phones. This includes phone manufacturers' app stores. This includes third-party app stores such as Mobango, Movogenie, GamesBond. You've met a few of these guys. 9Game is here. A lot of them are on these banners up there. See, they're all there. They're all different methods to distribute the game. Remember what we said, that developers need players to play their game, lots of players to play their game, and this is distribution. Trying to find a lot of players to play the game through other methods, right? And along with this, there's a lot of legacy operator app stores also existing. And those haven't died off. In the great transition, those still exist. The sources of distribution is all of this. The sources of billing in the organized app store, the credit card, debit card, and scratch cards. Google Play just introduced scratch cards at a very high level, high price points. And the sources of all of the other distribution methods is operator billing, because that's actually the easiest way to do billing, and because all of them allow it. Okay, so let's break down the 1,300 crores that we're talking about. How much does each of these particular stores break down to out of these 1,300 crores, right? So let's do the breakup of the organized app stores first, okay? So let's think of a very product manager way to break this down. Like a lot of you guys, I'm assuming a lot of you guys have started doing free-to-play games, which means you guys are working with a lot of PMs, product managers. So how would a product manager actually do this? How would he go out and find out data and break down how much money is actually being made out of India? Well, I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of other smarter product managers than me out there. But this is how I do it, okay? So let's take a look at it. This is the App Annie grossing charts, publicly available, of India, of Android and iOS on the 3rd of November. This is one day, but it is actually a reflection of the complete year, because this chart has not changed too much over the last 1 year. You have your Clash of Clans, you have Clash of Kings, you have Candy Crush, you have, and of course you have the Teen Patti guys, you have Teen Patti from Octo, Teen Patti from 24/7, Teen Patti from Moonfrog. And you have another Candy Crush, you have Empire 4 Kingdoms. That's on the Android side, and iOS also you have the others, right? Now, okay, so we know that these guys are the guys who make the highest amount of revenue. What does that mean? How much does that actually come out to? Okay, let's just Jackie Chan this shit a little bit. Let's look at the Teen Patti games, for example, right? On Android and on iOS, both Moonfrog's Teen Patti as well as Octo's Teen Patti are in number 4 and 5 and 5 and 6 respectively. Okay? What does that mean? How much money does that mean? Okay, so here's where we get into a little revenue speculation territory. So I'm going to reference a journalist article who, out of talking to a lot of people in the industry, what he came up with was the top grossing games from these Octo and Moonfrog end up trading positions on the chart ever so often, each making around $180,000 over a month, right? So he's saying that they are making about $1 crore a month from Android and iOS respectively. That means if you today only want to publish on the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store, and if you reach in the top 5 on both combined, you'll make about $1 crore a month, which means over a year, you're going to make about 10 to 12 crores over the year if you can sustain that position, right? This is, okay, this is one way to speculate on this thing. But what does that mean? You know, because what we've seen, you know, out of our other, you know, what we've seen out of power law, you know, how highly it drops when it goes under the 10th position, and what we've seen when we've also charted in the previous years, that once you go under the top 10 of top crossing, then you can barely make 2 crores. And once you go out of the top 20, you're barely making like, you know, 50 lakhs in a year, you know. So it drops off really fast. And if it drops off really fast, when we do a speculation of how much does all of Google Play and iOS make, the App Store make, I'm going to take a stab and saying that all of Google Play and iOS App Store in India is making about 200 crores in a year, right? 200 crores out of that 1300 crores is only made on the organized app stores. I might be off a little bit, but I don't think I can be off by more than like 10-15%, you know. So 1300 crores, out of it the organized app stores only 200 crores, means 1100 crores for the other distribution channels. I mean, we're talking about 1100 crores for the other distribution channel. I mean, I don't know whether anyone also, let me ask a question out here. How many of you guys make games? And how many of you have made more than 2 crores in a year from India in a game? Octro. I know there's one other person, but he's not raising his hand, but I won't hold him to it. But that's it, right? So this is what? This is like, you know, 5-6 times that amount. Jackie Chan is wondering, what is this MVAS? What is going on? Okay, let's do that breakdown. This is what MVAS looks like. This is a collection of everyone who's, like some of the players who've been involved in the MVAS over the years, right? It's the operators, it's the OEMs, it's the distributors, it's the content providers, it's the third-party marketplaces. I was doing a search online to find out a little bit about the MVAS ecosystem. You know, I came up with some SlideShare article which showed me this, and I've been in the industry for 12 years, and I can't understand what the hell is going on here. You know, it's a MVAS pipeline which is saying, oh, there's a content provider and the software developer and the technology holder. It's too confusing. And that's exactly what's happening. It's too confusing, and it's made like that. It's made to be confusing. But if you can crack this confusion, if you can break down and find out where do you need to go and where do you insert yourself, you'll actually end up making some money. This is some of the other MVAS reports, right? There's a MVAS report, purely MVAS report, which says that it's a PwC report which says that the MVAS industry is at 20,000 crores, right? This has actually come down. I read that in 2012 it was 30,000. So that means it's come down over the years. And the adoption of gaming within that is 12%. That means this report is saying that gaming is 2,400 crores. No. I mean, it's, okay, forget it. We are going to stick to the 1,300 crore number and go from there. But let's talk a little bit about what that breakup looks like, right? Let's go one by one. The pre-embedded games on phones. This is what happens when you go directly to the OEMs. You go to Micromax, you go to Carbon, you go to Lava, you go to Samsung, anyone who is willing to actually embed your game on their phone, right? This is a method of distribution with a method of monetization. The method of monetization is put in carrier billing and you make it a try and buy system, which means once you buy one of these phones, you buy a Micromax Bolt. What Micromax has done, they've embedded a whole bunch of apps. They've embedded Snapdeal, they've embedded Hotstar. They've also embedded one little game out there called Temple Paradise Run. That's another Micromax A10, right? Same thing. They've embedded a bunch of apps, the Micromax Store, the Micromax Zone. And they've also embedded another bunch of games, including Cricket Fever. Those games, right, they are embedded with operator billing integrated, right? And they're embedded in a business model of try and buy, which means you can buy that game for, you can play that game for 2 turns. Both those turns are time limited. And once that time goes and once the turns are over, the next time you want to play it, you have to pay. And the payment is actually pretty seamless if you are not cheated. Right? So we'll get into a little bit of that also a little bit later on. But technically, once that comes on, you click on it, and it'll just ask you, are you sure you want to pay 5 rupees for this game, or 10 rupees, or 20 rupees for this game? You say yes, it'll get deducted from your account. 95% of the accounts in India are all prepaid accounts, right? So if you have a little bit of balance in your account, that amount will get deducted, and that is people paying for that game in India. And if you are publishing this game, if you can get this embed, there is potential of making possibly up to 5 crores for this one single embedded game, right? No one has made 2 crores on a particular game in Google Play Store, right? So opportunity. What about the others, right? There's a Micromax stores, right? There's M-Zone. There are other phone manufacturer stores. Samsung has Galaxy apps. Micromax has an M-Zone, M-Store. Carbon, Lava, all these others have stores. Now, a lot of the international carriers, international OEMs, even Samsung and Sony and all, LG, what they do is those stores are actually just recommendations, curated recommendations, which means you click to it and it'll go back to the Google Play Store. Some of them, especially the Indian ones, they won't take you to the Google Play Store, they actually have their own store, right? People like Micromax are one of them who have their own stores, and this is what it looks like. It's pretty confusing because it looks very close to the old MVAS systems, but all of these are Java games. They're all Android games. All of these are the games which you would have gotten on the Google Play Store in any case, but with operator billing, right? And they can either be in a premium model or the try and buy model or subscription model, which is a subscription pack. A lot of the publishers in India actually do that. They sell subscription packs, which then you can, pay per month or per week or per day, and and you'll end up making, and you can end up paying like even 5 rupees a day. But they can play, and the consumers can play as many games as they want from that pack, right? So this is another method of distribution. The revenue potential here is dependent on downloads, but those downloads are dependent on the feature positioning, So if you can get a decent feature position, you can also make as much money as what I had said earlier. The other MVAS breakup, the third-party app stores. Now this is very new. This we've seen a little bit in the previous, like in the Java days, you used to have GetJar and all. Momango did exist in the Java days, but they transitioned into Android App Store. You have Mobugini, Mobango 9 apps. You have like GamesBond also that's coming up. A lot of these are also other potential of distribution where you can also do operator billing. Just think about that. If you can get it out there through these third-party app stores, there are other methods to distribute. Even if your distribution here is 1/10 of what was in the Google Play Store, you still have a high possibility of monetizing because of the fact that operator billing is integrated. And then you still have the other legacy and third-party app stores which still exist. Vodafone still has its third-party app stores. Idea still has its third-party app stores. And sometimes they'll also push users to go there and download content from it. Same thing, operator billing, subscription, premium, try and buy. Okay? So now let's do some market speculations, right? These are numbers that are floated around, and just thinking about that 500, that 1100 crores that is remaining, the fact that each game can make about a crore to 5 crores depending on where it's been distributed, the number of distribution channels, the number of games that are there, some of the big players. So obviously, if the operators are doing all the billing, and as we saw earlier, that early on they used to keep 70% of the revenue, but even today they're keeping at least 30% of the revenue. Here we're talking about end user price revenue, right? They're keeping that 30% of the revenue after the government is charging that 15% WPC tax, right? Which means now there's about 60-65% revenue left for the content provider publisher to share, right? So how much do the operators end up making? On an average, each operator attributes about 500 crores from games on their to their of their VAS. That's a lot. Now you're talking about like 3 big operators and the remaining, right? And on average, if you say 500, they are attributing. That means that number is coming to about 1500 plus, right? So even if we discount that a bit, you're talking about again hitting that 1300 revenue, 1100 crore revenue, right? Some of the key distributors in the industry make as much as 350 crores. And this is at end user price. So now out of that, if you break down, pay the government, pay the operator share, and then the distributors themselves, out of the rest of that, could be making as much as 250 crores. The breakup to developers, of course, is much less, of that 200 crores, and then the revenue share with the developers. And a lot of these games, they get the downloads just because they are there. Not because they're good, just because they're there. And because they do a lot of feature positioning. At this point, I just want to talk a little bit more about the MVAS ecosystem. This MVAS ecosystem, right, it's been given a lot of flack in the last 10 odd years since it's existed, rightfully so, because they've cheated the customers left, right, and center. Having said that, over the last 5 years, what I've seen also is that the government has actually clamped down in a big way. There were so many complaints coming that the government put some very stern over the last 5 years, right? And TRAI has made those suggestions, and the operators are bound to abide by those regulations. One of the things that they did was, in the earlier system in which you could just press on one of those stores and the user would get billed, they have to now have a third-party consent pop-up, which means now the operator also has to give a pop-up saying, are you sure you want to spend this money, right? Let me tell you, once that happened, the revenues did dip. They did dip, right? They dipped tremendously. But over the next couple of months, they again came back to what they were and started rising again, right? What that means is that the intent is still there. The user intent is still there. Even though MVAS cheated the customers, the users were still interested in going and buying those games, right? And they didn't know what else to buy, so they bought whatever was available to them, whatever was already on those stores, right? So if you can get your game on those stores or you can get it embedded, whatever the user sees is what he's going to attempt to purchase. Here are some of the challenges. Oh, iChart, I was supposed to make this smaller. But this is something that we all know. The bandwidth is poor in the country. Right now, if you want to get your games on those stores, what do you need to do? What are the challenges? Right? A lot of these stores have a very, I mean, they cater to devices which are very, very low end, right? This is the what Google calls the ULCH, which is the ultra low cost handsets, right? Their RAM is at 512 MB, and they have 4 GB memory, and they have like 1.2 gigahertz dual core processors, right? A lot of games that we are making today, even on Unity, they don't end up running on these. Because the bandwidth is poor, people can't download such heavy files. So things that are very easy to download on Google Play suddenly become a big pain to download through these operators. So then the operator decks and the other decks and the OEMs who want to do the embeds have these restrictions, right? Then the billing challenges exist, right? That because credit card penetration doesn't exist, and then there's a lack of trust on online transactions. So even if you have a debit card, people don't pay. But and 95% of these people are prepaid customers, right? So these are the challenges on putting these games on those stores. The solutions are pretty straightforward, right? If the bandwidth is poor, it affects your data usage. So keep your initial file size low, right? 10 MB is great, lower is better. Even if you have a game that is 15 MB, 20 MB, 35 MB, right, you can still attempt to distribute through these channels, right? They're going to come back and tell you that if you give us a lower-end game, it'll be easier. So if you have something which you think is high quality and you want to distribute it, keep your file size low, right? And then discovery doesn't become an issue if you're already embedded. But even in embeds, the amount of space that users are willing to give you, that OEMs are willing to give you is very less, right? Because they're already doing so many embeds and they want to keep the rest free. And memory is expensive. The inconsistent bandwidth affects online games. And when you're doing free-to-play games, you want everything to be, all the data to be captured, which means it has to connect to the net. So try to keep the games, and that's an issue, especially when there's inconsistent data. So keep the games as offline as possible, and it's possible. You can keep. I remember sitting for a talk by someone who worked at Zynga on the mobile games back in about at least 6 years ago. And he talked about technical methods on how you can do data collection by staying offline for a long amount of time. So there are ways to do that. Push analytics data only when necessary and not when the network is strong, and only when the network is strong. If you're poor, and because of poor credit card penetration, operator billing, and then the favorite term of everyone, direct carrier billing, right? Everyone is saying once carrier billing comes on Google Play, that's going to solve a lot of issues. So this MVAS thing, right? We are saying that, okay, let's take a look at it. That is what's available right now. Now, because there's this transition period, so therefore, it is possible to actually make money in this transition period. But will it last? Yes, no, I don't know. Let's see what the options are, right? The smart money is that MVAS is going to die, right? We are seeing the dropping of MVAS, or actually the steadying of MVAS over the last couple of years, right? Yet the revenues from gaming on MVAS has increased year on year. And this is a fact. This I have seen as out of experience, that gaming on MVAS has actually increased year on year. So it will die, but is it going to die tomorrow? Is it going to die now? Is it going to die like this? Google has been touting carrier billing has been coming, and when DCB comes, it's going to kill everyone, Is that really going to be the case? You know, the thing is that countries like Brazil and Japan and China actually thrive with alternate app store ecosystems as well, right? This is where that you know the merging in the transition period still makes a difference. Where in emerging countries we still see where Google Play Store still does well, there's still a thriving alternative app ecosystem. And MWAX will be plagued with customer complaints and false billing, and prior regulations have clamped down hard. So it will, because of that, it will kill it, right? But as I said before, that even after regulations, after those third-party consent and all has come in, we've seen that the intent of consumers still exists, right? So is it going to die? I don't know, right? There's options out there. There are things there that say that it might die. There are things that they say it might not die. So besides all these things, what should game developers do, right? You should obviously look for these avenues. You should make games on small footprints. You should keep your internet usage on these games low. But most importantly, build awesome games. And Jackie Chan this shit. Thank you.